All right, Elaine's your meeting. You got
Great.
control.
So, I guess this is the meeting of. Just kind of waiting to see it on YouTube. Um, so okay, here we go. So this is the meeting of our Wichita Animal Control Board Education Subcommittee, and we have most of us here. Um, and I'm trying to pull up YouTube real quick to um, here we go, so that we can watch for any comments and anything like that. And let me, oh, wrong one. Okay, here we go. So I guess, Charlie, can we put it in gallery view? Um and then so the purpose of the committee in was, we had originally talked about started off with a conversation about owned cats. And as we had that conversation back in, I believe it was September, um, it we started adding a few things to it, so it became more of a general education, talking about keeping dogs like restrained and things like that. So there were quite a few things that were it just became more of a general type of thing. And the so we've got an agenda, and pretty much the two areas we'll need to cover are, what do we want to educate on, what is it important to make sure that we cover, and then also, how do we want to go about doing this. So I guess first off, I don't see any public comments, and we can keep an eye out for that on YouTube as we go along. But on the agenda, we had just a starting list of topics to cover. And this is just starting, and just in the last week, just thinking of a few more things, like socialization of one's animals is a bigger deal than we tend to keep in mind sometimes, at least speaking for myself. Also, things like household hazards that might go under the general care kind of category. What and we'll try to keep this meeting to under an hour, because it is lunch hour for people. But what do you guys see that we need to cover, that we need to add, as far as general, or not just general, but pet owner education in Wichita? And a lot of these items came out of like a next door post that I had made, as well as our meeting on back in September. So just things that had come up in discussion.
Elaine, I would say that given what Hungry and I have to deal with on a regular basis, there's no denying we have a sincere pet overpopulation issue. And with that being the case, I think that if we're working on some resources to try to make more free or reduced fee spay and neuter services available to the public. But understanding the importance of spaying and neutering is, I know these campaigns have happened in the past, but that still really needs to be our community's focus, because we're just going to keep spinning our wheels until we address the overpopulation. And then I see that you had like microchipping on there, for example, and that's a really great way to also help the city keep animals out of the shelter so they can focus on things like return to field and educating the community. It's something cheap and easy enough that myself and rescue groups can really work towards making the microchips available to pet owners for free or very low cost. Because that's really what's going to allow us to keep animals from coming into the city shelter. Now, that's not necessarily going to address the other 6,000 animals that we get on intake from owner surrender, but spaying and neutering and doing a focused effort on that will definitely make a difference. And the microchips make a really big difference for I would say for WAS to be able to get those animals returned to where they need to, instead of relying on someone to continually check the website. You know, as you guys know, only 2% of cats are getting reclaimed right now, and only about 39% of dogs. And if more of our population was microchipped, especially with up-to-date information, it would be so much easier to be able to reach out to the correct owners, get them reunited, no matter how much time has passed.
And that up-to-date information is key.
Mhm.
I mean, I have local friends who it just doesn't occur to people to keep that is one more thing you need to add to the list. If you move, if you change your phone number, one more thing you need to update or notify when that information changes. And so spaying and neutering is a big one. The I've had quite a few friends lately. Latest is one in another city who they tend to let their cats go in and out, and the cats just go missing. In Wichita, I don't know that people are aware that their neighbors trap cats, and then take them to WAS, and then if they don't have the microchip information up to date, then it makes it harder to get those animals found. But so I guess that's sorry, I'm going off the microchip topic, but I guess keeping cats indoors is something that I don't know that people understand the importance of. I don't know that they understand all of the threats out there to their cats when they let them out. And if only 2% are getting reclaimed, that is staggering and frightening. Sorry, I just had a friend in another city whose cat it took 4 days, 5 days to get the cat home, and this is just you know so what else?
Well, I think we probably need to keep our focus as tight and actually as small as possible, and identifying the places where are identifying our pressure points is definitely the first place where we need to start and to think about the most. And I think that 2-point, maybe 3-point list there is probably enough. I mean, that's really honestly a lot when you start digging into what kind of things you need to do. I would add on the microchipping and maintenance thing. It's been a while since I moved, but last time I did move, I got a little care package from the post office that was, hey, you've moved. Here's things you need to do. I don't have any idea if there was any animal chip update piece in that, but that would be the first place I would think to put that, is something where literally anybody who moves into town gets it.
That's an awesome idea.
And I have no idea what the process is for that. No recollection whatsoever, but it strikes me as just the most cover your base thing.
Mhm.
and something that the city obviously utilizes for other things like shut off your water, start your water.
Well, and I know too, just speaking from personal experience, those microchip companies, they're constantly sending you emails all the time to tell you, is your microchip information up to date? I mean, I get them all the time, like about every 3 months on my pets. So it's not like they don't remind you. So,
They
but
do.
I think that's a good idea, Mike. That's an excellent idea.
They probably remind you so much that you never pay any attention to it.
That's probably true because I do just kind of delete those emails.
Yeah, I mean, I get so much email. There are things that I round file without even blinking.
Yeah.
That would be exactly the kind of thing that I would never pay any attention to.
Yeah. Yeah.
So those would be the top 3 topics for cats: spaying, neutering, microchipping, and keeping cats indoors. We had talked briefly at that September meeting about dogs and making sure that owners know to keep them on leash. And then that was one piece of feedback that I got repeatedly in that next door thread, was about dogs being off leash in their neighborhood, and then like leaving their yard, so maybe outside in the front yard with the owners, and then when another dog and another neighbor is walking their dog, then that dog leaves the yard and comes after that feedback came repeatedly. And so to me, that kind of restraining your animal, for lack of a better word, is just kind of a general pet care thing. That, I mean, it's kind of like when you have a toddler and you need to keep your toddler safe, so you keep them from going, into the backyard if there's a pool, or out into the street. I mean, some of our pets are as intense as toddlers. It is kind of the same, I guess, same kind of idea, is if you have a pet, making sure that you're aware what the hazards are. And then now, and I don't know that, like I said, especially with cats, people fully understand the hazards out there. With dogs, I don't know that people fully understand that their dog is still an animal that has that bit of kind of wild in it. Is kind of cool things with pets that we get to have, that these creatures give us their trust, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're fully relieved of those innate tendencies, like going after another dog that they see across the street.
So if we were to genericize both of those topics, keeping your cat indoor and keeping your dog on leash, that would be more sort of just, one could just call that pet restraint. And that way, I mean, that would give us three topics to focus on, and things we could strategize to work.
And that would also, if we bring in the dogs, help with the mailman issue that had been brought up with the postal carrier issue that now I'm blanking on her name. Is it Tawana? Had brought up in our meetings. Now there are still going to be people that obviously don't pay attention to what we put out there, and continue to let their cats out and stuff, but the best we can do is the best we can do as far as helping them understand the threats that are out there, and the importance that there's just too many animals getting hurt and lost, and then, like they're saying, not reclaimed. So as far as, so Stephanie, did you have any additions? Did you hear what our 3 points are?
I missed 1 and 2. I only got 3. Sorry.
So spaying and neutering, microchipping, like getting microchipped and then maintaining that information. Emily said that only 2% of the cats coming in are getting reclaimed. So and she also mentioned pet overpopulation is a big deal. So it was kind of those 3. Mike had suggested that we keep our focus a little bit more narrow so that it's manageable.
Okay.
It might be good also to add the some education around existing laws.
I think
some of these. Go ahead, Mike.
Oh, I was going to say, I think with all of these points, you could basically have a thing at the end, a closer that would say, see the city ordinance on pet ownership, blah, 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 and give them a link to look it up. Because, I mean, there's a whole lot that we would be leaving out, but I think a lot of people don't even know what any of the ordinances are or where they exist, where to find them. And it's, it's not always an easy read, but finding them is.
I think, yeah, I think if having the agenda being educating people on good pet ownership, but also, I mean, I don't know that we want to educate on this, but it's also about being a good neighbor, because when the guys across the street are opening the door and letting their 2 pit bulls out that have already attacked people on the street, or attacked dogs on the street, and have run after some other neighbor, that's just not good neighboring. And so
you would need
I don't know how you really educate.
Need to call the campaign something.
Yeah, I don't know how you educate on that part of it, but I think including the human being in the animal welfare circle family is an important piece to it. So having consequences for for doing these things is probably an important thing, but
Right.
I always hesitate to highlight on that part of it, because really at the root, if we're all being good neighbors and being conscious of the needs of our neighbors in our neighborhood, then a lot of these problems kind of go away. But in focusing on the laws, just, I don't know, it's not.
Well,
I will add this let me add this to what Richard has to say. I think being a good neighbor is like the number 1 thing that we talk about. And when we talk about laws and ordinances, there's a lot of people that are, I mean, just truly uneducated in what those are with pet ownership. I think that Dr. Jones can speak to that quite often. Whenever people come in to have their cat looked at, they have this emergency and they're like, when's the last time the animal's been seen? And they're like, never. I mean, there's just people that just don't know the laws or ordinances. And so I think that knowing that there are some teeth in those sometimes can make that explanation a little bit better for them. Like, if you don't do this, then this happens. And people don't understand that there are repercussions to that. And that's the one thing that we really try to talk about with the dog ordinances, especially with the dangerous dog, is, okay, so your dog gets out once, maybe an oopsie, okay? Your dog gets out a second time, we've got a problem that's got to be addressed. So knowing that there are consequences as things progress, I think help people make better decisions when it comes to pet ownership. And that in turn helps them be a better neighbor.
Yeah, and I think the lieutenant can probably address this as well, is that's why we have the laws, and because we have people that aren't good neighbors and we have people that don't abide by the law, and that's why we have the laws in place, is so that we can enforce them, because there are people that are just not smart.
Right, and to have them on the books so that when things do go bad, people in the neighborhood have a recourse to some something.
Because people that have two pit bulls across the street that let them out, they're not going to stop just because the neighbor across the street says, "Hey, that's not smart. Please don't do that." You're going to have
Right.
to get probably the police to intervene. So
so the three points of spay neuter, the microchip and maintenance, and then referring at the end to the ordinance, is that what we want to do?
We were talking about spay and neuter, microchipping, and
then
pet
keeping
restraint, actually.
Yeah.
And
Ordinances could really fit in on alongside.
yeah, that's, I was just saying, like, it could be a very tiny thing at the bottom of everything we do. Because, you know, you just sort of want to say, oh, by the way, there's other things, anytime you get anybody's attention. Then, you know, I wouldn't make a big deal of it or make it a central focus at all. I mean, if you're talking about a print material thing, it would be just a nice little thing across the bottom.
Yeah.
I wouldn't even include it if it was, you know, radio or TV. You probably wouldn't have a chance to make a meaningful impact with that. But you
if
know,
it's a
something
chance for a
online,
link that could.
yeah, online it would be even easier because it would just be a link. So yeah.
So Emily had mentioned the possibility of like spay neuter clinics. I guess what else? How else do we want to? And then I love that idea of using the post office. If we can, that flyer that they send out, if we can get the microchip on there. We can probably talk to our city council members about getting the occasional post on their Facebook pages, or even like a post on the city's Facebook page. And the city also has Twitter account. What some of those would be good ways to remind about, like, oh, make sure your microchip information is up to date. Here's why it's important to keep your pet restrained. What are other ways that we want to go about increasing awareness? And
what's done at Emily at the point of adoption, when someone comes in to adopt a pet, are they given?
Much
I mean,
as they
it's been,
can.
you give a bunch of information about this kind of stuff already, right?
Right. Animals don't leave our facility unless they are microchipped and spayed and neutered anyways. And then so we talk to them about updating their microchip. I know the microchip providers send them regular reminders. We have a long contract. It's probably, I don't know, a 20-minute process in talking about caring for your pet. We don't let animals leave our facility unless they're leashed. We don't provide leashes or collars, and so we have them available for purchase in our retail store, but if they don't have them available, we don't let them leave the building without with the animal. I would say though, did that answer all of your question?
Yeah, I that's what I wanted to know. Yeah.
Okay. We can, every year is a little bit different. COVID was definitely different for us and fluctuation last year. But we typically have on average about 2,000 puppies and kittens that get surrendered to us every year from owners that, their animal had a cat or dog had a litter and they don't want to care for them. And an additional probably 4,000 animals that of varying different ages. So it's definitely a focus that needs to be there. I think that whatever the marketing efforts are, that it really needs to be focused on the why, because and if the why is that you could be fined, or it could be enforced, or if the why is that, one cat can have upwards of 1,000, be responsible for 1,000 more cats in a year's time, whatever the visually impactful motivational statements are going to be the key of whether or not the campaign is educational, because you can walk past a billboard 1,000 times that says to spay or neuter your pet, but if there's no motivation behind it, it's just going to be white noise, as everything else is right now.
How many neonatal kittens get euthanized every year? Do we have any idea on that?
Oh boy. I would say with that neonatal kittens between us and WAS are less likely to be euthanized than to die in care. They're a very vulnerable population, and correct, I could be wrong, but
it's very little, Emily.
Yeah, it's like 4% survive or something like that.
It's very little.
And without their mother, of course, right? And so it's just that it doesn't matter really how hard you try, but just trying to get them, the survival rate's just astronomical. So I would say that if we euthanize if we euthanize neonatals, the percentage there's almost none, little to none. They would die in care, either with the foster family in one of the shelters before we could get them, or and when we get them, we never really know how long they've been without proper care. And then again, even when you've given them care, only about 4%, I think, survive.
See, there's so many things on Facebook. I mean, everybody loves kitten pictures. And they pull at your heartstrings. And I think that if people understood that not getting their cats spayed and neutered could lead to the deaths of those, cute little murderous, fur balls, that would be seriously impactful. If it leads to death and suffering of that, I don't know that people understand that that's part of what happens when they don't spay and neuter their cats.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Lane, I'm just trying to keep up with all the notes and stuff. And I think you mentioned there was 3 items to educate on, and I think we've been all over the place. I was just wondering if you could just highlight those 3 items.
Spaying and neutering, the importance of microchip, getting microchips and then maintaining that information, and then restraining your pets, whether that be keeping your cats indoors or keeping your dog on leash or in a yard, fenced yard.
Elaine, just to tag on to something that you just said, you said you see online the animals, the kittens especially, that are in care that look to be suffering and things like that. I will tell you from experience that a lot of what is put out to the public on some of those social media forums is not always a accurate picture of what is truly represented there. And what I mean by that is a lot of those are presented to make money to be able to pay for care for those animals too. So in the event that there are a litter of kittens at KAHS or at WAS that need immediate assistance and are out, they leave almost immediately if they need care.
I don't mean you see kittens that are suffering online. I mean, you see like Kitten Lady, for example, on Facebook, I mean, the
Cat
most
memes.
adorable, I'm sorry?
Just cat memes in general, and just very.
But especially like starting to get this time of year, the absolutely adorable pictures of those cute little fluff balls.
Mm-hmm.
And people see that and they don't think about, they think that that if their cat has kittens, it's going to be that that cute little fluff ball that has no suffering, and they think it's going to live and be healthy and everything. And I don't know that they think about the fact that their survival rate, if they don't get their animals spayed and neutered and the neonatal kittens wind up in care, is so low. I mean, I guess that's what I'm saying is I think that could be persuasive if people understand that not getting their cats spayed and neutered doesn't necessarily wind up in the cute little fluff balls having total comfort. And like if only 4% survive in care, then can somebody explain?
I understand what you're saying. It's almost like the anti-abortion posters. If you put up some posters that show up a little chopped up fetus, if you put up some posters of kittens that have upper respiratory with their eyes matted shut and snot coming out of their nose and they can't breathe, rather than cute little fluffy kittens, and say this is what happens with cats that end up at the animal shelter, instead of these cute little fluffy kittens, please get your animals spayed and neutered so they don't end up here and end up like this. Basically, that's what you're saying.
Yeah.
The hard message is that, you know, people don't realize the actual care that they have to do when they get kittens, and then that leads them to abandon the kittens, and
they end up in the animal shelter
just
where they can get exposed to all these diseases. That's the problem.
The cost of you know, when we make a decision, like you were saying, a lot of times it's sort of an emotional based decision to bring an animal into our life. If people knew, like, this is what it costs, you know, and it's not an astronomical amount, I think, for most people to do, but people still will make those decisions. Maybe it's easier to make the right decision when means are tight, if they do have that sort of an information. So if I'm going to get a dog or a cat, these are the costs for licensing, spay, neuter, annual vaccinations, all of that stuff. And then people say, wow, cute as can be, well, maybe I can explore maybe fostering, or I can babysit my neighbor's dog or something like that.
I agree.
Or volunteer at KHS.
Yeah,
and
I
I
get
think
it. Go ahead.
I think a lot of that also comes from a conversation my wife and I had, and I told you guys about it when we tried to have our meeting last week, was, you know, we were talking about maybe getting a pet for the boys, our kids. And I had to stop my wife, because she was getting very excited about things. And I was like, you know, you do realize that we're getting a pet for us, like the adults. This isn't really for the kids. I mean, the kids will do some participation in it, but they're not really going to be taking care of it. It's going to be on us. And I think a lot of people make that mistake. They think I'll get a puppy for the kid, and then I got to take care of the puppy, and then I got to get rid of this puppy. This is too much work. And I think when you make that mistake, and you make that mistake on the scale of cat breeding, it quickly escalates.
Yeah. And I see it all the time too, where people, they adopt a kitten, or they find a kitten out on the street and they say, oh, I just found this free kitten, and they don't realize that they need to have all this testing done on it, you know, fecal test, a leukemia test, or it's got fleas and ear mites and snotty nose, and they don't realize that it actually costs to own that cat. And they quickly realize it's not free after all. So they get a strong dislike for the kitten really quickly.
So we do have comments on YouTube. So Sheldon asked, is this where I can ask what can be done about controlling the goose population? Geese are federally protected animals, and so there is nothing that the city can do about controlling the goose population. Granny asked,
Elaine
yeah,
needs to contact Kansas Wildlife and Parks.
Okay,
to address the geese population.
Kansas Wildlife and Parks for geese. And then Granny says, I think the concentration of spay and neuter campaigns needs to be focused on more lower income areas of the city. I know my son's neighborhood, there are cats and dogs everywhere, not so much where I live. Jennifer says, yes, Granny, the areas impacted by poverty should be the focus. Granny says, many people in his neighborhood care about the animals. They just can't afford to get them fixed. Jennifer says, there are more and more low-cost resources becoming available. We have to figure out how to put the word out. Granny says, I also think people are afraid to reach out for fear of having the pets taken away. And Jennifer says that is pertinent information to consider. So, and that is all the comments so far. And so, yeah, whatever, so how we choose to communicate, we need to make sure we're doing it in ways that it's going to get out to everybody. Emily, do you think you had talked a long time ago about the possibility of grants for education on some of this? Does that still exist, or?
Yeah, it's not, so the nature of grants is that it's, you typically have to build a proposal, work on that for a little while, put your application in, and then if you're lucky, you'll probably get funded in 6 months to a year. So it is definitely a possibility. It would probably be best for our community if we did it in a way that was in part of something else that we were already doing. So, for example, if we were going to write a grant to pay for spay neuter services, or discount them or do something along those lines, then we could add on, a couple $1,000s for education, that kind of thing. I'm thinking that in this instance, and with, the different types of connections that we might be able to find from, maybe it's animal supporters or things along those lines. I'm wondering if we probably couldn't get some local organizations to be able to help provide individual donations that could help us build those marketing campaigns.
Okay.
But I do think that, there's a lot of marketing firms, and we've got WSU and all of the students can do projects on that can help us build campaigns and find the right audience reach and do, really make sure that we do our due diligence so it's successful.
So, so then we can focus between now and the next meeting on finding out some of those resources and who might be willing to. So I guess if everybody reaches out to their circle and starts reaching out, or is there a more organized suggestion?
Well, I would say that if we can identify kind of what we want to say and how we want to say it, then or actually I should say who we want to say our message to, that focuses how we say it a lot. Mm-hmm. And so we need to figure out exactly the audience that we need to speak to, and then figure out how to talk to them, and what, that's both like what media works better and what message in that media works better, and those are all sort of professional honing methods that we should use to maximize whatever we're going to do to reach people. I think that I'm kind of coming back to the post office and zip codes and direct mail, actually, which isn't free, but is an effective way to know that you're reaching people across economic lines in specific areas. Because I think I was hearing that there's particular areas that we really definitely want to focus on more than others. Some parts of town need more of a reminder than others, need more messaging, and that's definitely some. When you start talking about reaching people online, yeah, it's cheap, but that's also part of that part of the reason that's cheap is because the economy of it is paid by the people accessing things online, and so you're cutting off the poor and the elderly just right at the get-go, which is actually some of the people that we need to reach. So it makes it
TV and radio too. I think TV used to be anyway that a certain amount of their programming had to be educational and social service type content. So it may be that they could be approached to see what they might be able to provide and how we could.
I think the FCC is largely backed off on that.
They backed off on it?
Yeah.
Okay.
And is there any way that we could have some way for people to report problem areas other than just poorer neighborhoods? Because I mean, that doesn't really narrow it down all that much. So that we could target these areas better, like some sort of a link or a website they can go to say this specific neighborhood or this specific street or anything like that.
It'd be nice if they could just dial 211 to report pet problems.
Yeah.
If United Way could be instrumental in helping to process those kinds of calls. I would imagine that that WAS has records of pickups and things with zip codes.
Yeah, we've got WAS and ours targeted demographic areas where we try to put an influx of our resources in, so we could put that together.
Oh, that'd be awesome. Sorry about disappearing for a while. I don't know what happened.
On this end, you were actually here twice for a little while, so.
We'll blame it on Julio.
Yeah, Marty's napping. So, okay. Yeah, because last I had heard Mike was talking about targeting towards like the audience determines the method and the message. So yeah, that information on where would be awesome.
Yeah, and we also, Beauties and Wall, they both do a lot of work on the ground in the neighborhoods, and so they're going to have some good information for us as well. So I'm sure Santiago or I can reach out to them.
Okay. So let's see, we've got a few more comments on YouTube. So Granny says, if the KU vet school has a mobile spay and neuter clinic, perhaps bring them to lower income areas. Some people can't get to KHS. Or is it K-State that has the mobile clinic?
K-State.
And then says, I could be mistaken on the mobile clinic though. So
K-State has one. Mm-hmm.
They have one, but I think they had a change in their rules and they can't come down quite this far now. I think that was a change just in the last year where they were just out of their radius. So Emily might know better.
I would tag onto that. They also have to have an emergency facility, so they would not be able to operate outside of grounds of like a vet area. They actually have to be in that type of an area for emergencies.
okay.
And have to be under the direction of a supervisor. So like if they were to come here, they would have to have an on-staff, fully licensed DVM, like Dr. Jones would have to be there, somebody from KHS, somebody would have to be there that would be fully responsible in the event of an emergency.
And I think that she's right. I don't think that the mobile unit can travel here for some reason.
So, so we want to work on figuring out what our target areas are. and then also kind of developing our message. Once we get that information, possibly looking at grants, and then the any local organizations that can help us get the message out. So
I think also, Elaine, the developing the message, you'd mentioned, or someone mentioned, reaching out to WSU to take on a project, maybe in their community studies or whatever programs they have.
yeah, that would be great.
And I think once we get, it kind of has to go hand in hand, I guess, with the where it's being communicated, how it's being communicated, and then the what is being communicated. I mean, which comes first, right?
The beauty and maybe the headache of that arrangement would be that you would more or less just turn the project over them, and then you would get what you would get after a few months. And I did that sort of thing with my when I ran my own newspaper. I worked with some design students to make covers for my paper. Just be artists and go, and it turned out fabulous. I used it. I told them I would use the best one, and I wound up using all of them. But they can give you really good results. So.
Well, they're also the younger kids, they know how to make memes. Some people don't know how to make memes. I don't think I could make a meme. So they're much more adept at that sort of thing, being digital natives. So yeah, I think there has to be some sort of a handoff, and then good luck. Let us know when you're done, kind of thing.
Well, and it might take a variety of approaches as well. So maybe get perhaps the Elliott School involved on some aspect, and then figure out some more traditional methods of communication as well. So how soon do we want to meet again? Any thoughts? Do we want to meet again in if we have a meeting next month? Do we want to wait till June, or we have an animal advisory board meeting next month is what I'm saying, animal control. So do we want to wait till June?
I think you need to set a meeting so you do every month until you get your core of what you're going to publish out. That would be my recommendation.
Okay. So so if we go for next month, do we want to do this I guess today is the third Wednesday, which would be the date of the meeting next month. Do we want to go for the second Wednesday next month then, and try to meet on the second Wednesday so it's not the same one, or do we want to meet on the same one?
It doesn't matter to me.
I'm just looking real quick. I think Wednesdays for me in the afternoon, yeah, they tend to be open except for May 19th, which is our ASAB meeting. So maybe the 12th, which would be the second, right? Second Wednesday.
Yeah. Does it
and that would also put us always a week prior to our main meeting.
Yeah, that would be a great idea. Great point. So so May 12th then? Does that work for everybody? May 12th at noon, same setup.
Yeah,
looks good for me.
And I'll go ahead and reach out to WSU just to find out who to talk to, and what the interest might be. Semester's wrapping up. This would probably be a fall project, to be honest.
Okay.
Maybe a summer project. I don't know if there's anything. I don't have any idea what's going on, but I just work there. I don't really pay any attention. I don't even have to go to campus anymore. I don't even know I don't know students there. I don't know. I'm not sure. Not what I deal with.
That would be a huge help.
But yeah, I'll reach out to the school and see if there's any interest.
The May 12th at noon. And we'll go for second Wednesdays. All right.
Elaine, is this going to be a Zoom meeting or is this going to be in person? Because at some point we need to look at, you're going to have to look at these meetings to go back to being in person possibly, right?
Yeah. I would think, has everybody had a chance to get vaccinated?
Yeah,
Mhm.
I have.
Because when we I mean are people okay with meeting in person starting next month?
I
Yes.
personally am not. I have been vaccinated, but I'm seeing too much going around the world. If there can be a virtual option like we have for our DAB, people can meet in person if they want, or virtually. Plus, to try to get away in the middle of the day to meet someplace physically at noon is going to be difficult for me.
Yeah,
So
actually
we
a
have-
lot. It's a
I'm
lot
with
easier
Richard
to
on
do
that.
this.
We have to do it. It's either all or none. So we're either all gonna, yeah, they don't want us doing separation. So it's all or none. So it sounds like we have some people that are uncomfortable. So we'll need to make this a Zoom meeting for at least the next meeting. And then we can reevaluate at that time and find out what's everyone's comfortability is.
That sounds good. Especially with the increase in variants, just 1 more month might be good. Just make sure. So
Well,
I'm not even necessarily uncomfortable. It's just, man, it's easier to just flip up my screen and boom, I'm in the meeting and then close it. I don't have to commute or do anything, and that saves me half an hour.
I know, but we also have to be cognizant of some of the people that want to attend these meetings don't feel like they're able to actively participate in these meetings being Zoom meetings. So we just need to look at that down the road and may need to discuss that as far as in the future, what would be a good time and what would be a good date for people to meet in person, because at some point we are going to have to meet in person.
and the other consideration is city resources. So yeah. Okay. So we can for next month we'll do Zoom, and then we'll figure out about June. So all right, May 12th at noon. Thank you,
Great.
guys.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.
Have a good day.
Bye-bye.